My dad yelled, "You have 48 hours to grab your stuff and get lost of here. That house is your sister's now." The words cracked through the dining room like a whip. The chandelier trembled above us, catching fragments of my father's rage in its crystals. My sister smirked, her freshly manicured nails drumming the table as if she'd been waiting for this performance. I didn't argue. My lips pressed shut, my pulse echoing in my ears. Silence, I learned long ago, has more weight than shouting. I bent to pick up the house key that had slipped from my hand onto the marble floor. Its metal was cold, heavier than ever. That key had opened my childhood mornings, my teenage heartbreak nights. Now, it felt like a betrayal carved into brass. "Don't look at me like that," my sister whispered across the table, low enough so only I could hear. "You had your chance. This place was never meant for you." I wanted to slam the key into the table. I wanted to remind her who scrubbed the floors when she was too busy shopping, who fixed the broken pipes when Dad didn't bother, who actually built a home here. But my jaw stayed locked. I forced my face into a smile so still it unnerved her. The clock on the wall ticked. Each second sounded like a countdown detonator. 48 hours. A lifetime dismantled into 2 days. I was 27, and my name is Lena Hartwell. If you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. Have you ever had family cross your boundaries? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your story too. I gathered the key into my palm. It wasn't just metal anymore. It was a promise. A promise that silence was not surrender, it was preparation. And when the door closed behind me, something else opened inside me. The certainty that this ending was only the beginning. The front door clicked shut behind me, sealing in their laughter like smoke in a locked room. Outside, the night air was sharp, almost metallic, and the driveway lights hummed above the stone path. My suitcase wheels scraped the gravel. It sounded too final. I didn't head to the motel right away. Instead, I sat in my car parked across the street, staring at the house through the windshield. Every window glowed except mine. My old room, already dark as if erased. My phone buzzed. A message from Dad. No drama. Just do what's right. Seconds later, another from my sister. "Don't drag this out, Lena. You're embarrassing yourself." I closed my eyes. A dozen memories reeled back. Birthday cakes I'd baked when Mom forgot. Homework I'd helped my sister with while she bragged about boys. The first check I'd handed Dad to help with the mortgage. Every piece of me was embedded in those walls. Yet here I was, exiled like a tenant whose rent ran out. At midnight, I opened my briefcase. Not clothes, not just. Inside were documents, mortgage receipts in my name, utility bills I'd covered, the contract clause I once begged Dad to sign when he borrowed money from me. Clause 7.4. Any repayments delinquent beyond 12 months result in shared equity. His signature sat at the bottom. The key in my palm felt different now. Less like a memory, more like leverage. Still, I didn't rush. Revenge is like tea, it brews best in silence. I leaned back in the seat, watching the curtains shift in the living room as my sister walked past, glass of wine in hand. She thought she had one. The streetlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. My reflection in the windshield looked calm, but inside, something had crystallized. They thought they gave me 48 hours. What they didn't know was I had been preparing for years. And in 3 days, when my sister walked back into that house, she would finally understand what it meant when silence speaks louder than rage. Morning arrived gray, the kind of sky that pressed down on everything. I carried 2 boxes from the porch, loading them into the trunk of my car while neighbors pretended not to watch. Their blinds shifted like eyelids. Everyone loved gossip, and I was about to become their favorite chapter. Inside, the house felt different. My sister had already started rearranging things. A vase of lilies sat on the entryway table. Her signature, cheap perfume pretending to be grace. She hadn't wasted a minute claiming what wasn't hers. Dad appeared in the hallway, straightening his tie, not meeting my eyes. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be, he muttered. I wanted to laugh. Harder? As if tossing out his eldest daughter with 48 hours' notice was just housekeeping. Instead, I nodded, my silence slicing sharper than any words. In my room, I opened the closet. The smell of cedar, faint but familiar, wrapped around me. My journals, stacked on the top shelf, waited like witnesses. I slid them into the box, one by one. Pages of years spent documenting their favoritism, their backroom deals, their manipulations. My handwriting looked shaky in the margins, but the facts were clear. Then I found it, the manila folder tucked behind winter coats. Property records. I'd slipped copies in there months ago, after a night when Dad's lawyer left his briefcase unattended at the office. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled them out, but not from fear, from confirmation. Clause 7.4 wasn't just a footnote. It was a time bomb. My phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. We should talk. I represent clients with interests in that property. I froze, staring at the message. Someone else knew. I closed the closet door softly. The air hummed. The lilies downstairs reeked stronger now, as if rotting already. The house wasn't just a home anymore. It was a battlefield, and every document I carried out was a weapon waiting for the right moment. By the second evening, the house no longer felt like mine, but every creak in the floorboards still recognized me. I moved slower now, not out of defeat but calculation. My sister strutted through the kitchen in silk pajamas, wine glass raised like a trophy. "You still wear that perfume?" she asked suddenly, wrinkling her nose as I passed. A decoy line, sharp and out of place. I didn't answer. Her smirk widened. Silence unnerved her more than a fight ever could. Dad was in his study, papers spread across the desk. He didn't notice me in the doorway until I cleared my throat. His shoulders stiffened. "If you're here to argue, don't. It's done." But his hand trembled when he shuffled the contracts. I noticed the margin notes, his lawyer's handwriting, not his own. And tucked between the pages was the same clause he signed years ago. My chest tightened, not with fear, but certainty. He knew. He'd buried it, but he knew. That night, I checked into a motel on the edge of town. Neon lights flickered across the cracked blinds, painting my room in restless color. On the nightstand sat the folder, the key, and my journals, lined up like soldiers. I opened one journal at random, a page from 3 years back. Paid Dad's overdue loan, $12,000. He promised repayment in 6 months. No word yet. My handwriting was jagged but undeniable. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. "Documents in your possession change everything. Meet tomorrow. Neutral ground." The motel walls felt thinner with every second. I didn't know if this was ally or enemy reaching out. I closed the journal, placed the key on top. Its reflection in the cheap lamp looked almost golden. 48 hours they'd given me, but time was folding differently now. Every second pressed closer to something inevitable. And when that door opened tomorrow, whether it was my sister's or a stranger's, they wouldn't just find me waiting. They'd find the truth sharpened, ready. The cafe they chose was downtown, neutral ground, but still too close to the courthouse for coincidence. I arrived early, sitting by the window with the folder tucked inside my tote bag. The bell over the door chimed minutes later, and a man in a charcoal suit stepped in. Mid-40s, clean cut, the kind of presence that carried both authority and caution. "Miss Hartwell?" he asked, lowering his voice. I nodded. He slid into the booth across from me. No introductions, just a thin leather briefcase between us. "I represent investors interested in your father's property, or rather, your share of it." The words tightened the air. I didn't flinch. He leaned forward. "Your father defaulted on obligations years ago, but clause 7.4, his fingers tapped the table lightly, makes you an equity holder, quietly but legally, which means your sister's little victory toast is premature." My throat went dry, but I kept my face composed. Why are you telling me this? Because leverage is only useful when you know you have it. And right now, you're holding more than you realize. His eyes flicked to my tote bag. He hadn't seen the folder, but somehow he knew. The waitress poured coffee, steam curling between us. The man didn't touch his cup. Decide how you want to play this, Miss Hartwell. Family drama or contract enforcement. One destroys relationships. The other secures assets. Then he stood, briefcase snapping shut. You have my number. He left before I could answer. I sat there, heart racing, the key in my pocket pressing into my leg like a reminder. The cafe buzzed with chatter, spoons clinking against porcelain, but to me it all sounded distant. They thought I was being erased. Instead, I had just been handed proof I was written in ink. The question now was how sharp I wanted that ink to bleed. That night I didn't sleep. The motel's neon lights kept pulsing through the blinds like a restless heartbeat. I lay awake replaying the man's words. Family drama or contract enforcement. My sister's smirk, Dad's trembling hands, the vase of lilies. It all fused into one truth. They believed I'd already surrendered. By morning, I decided to give them the illusion they craved. I drove back to the house with my final box, letting the tires crunch loud over the driveway gravel. My sister stood on the porch, arms folded, robe cinched too tightly. Well, she said, voice dripping with triumph, guess you finally know your place. I smiled faintly, the kind that made her shift uncomfortably. Enjoy redecorating. I set the box down, deliberately leaving it behind. Inside were only old blankets, but tucked at the bottom was a copy of Clause 7.4, highlighted, circled, undeniable. Her eyes narrowed, suspicious, but she didn't dare open it then. She thought it was clutter. She thought wrong. Dad appeared behind her, jaw clenched. You're done here, Lena. Move on. The key in my pocket pressed harder, like a heartbeat against my thigh. I touched it briefly, then let it go. Silence again. Their impatience thickened the air. I walked to my car without another word. The door shut. The engine hummed. Through the rearview mirror, I caught my sister lifting the box lid. Her face drained of color when she spotted the papers. Dad snatched them away, his hand shaking so violently the pages rattled. For the first time, I saw it clearly, fear. Driving off, I realized I wasn't the one exiled. They were the ones trapped, inside walls already cracking, inside a contract they couldn't rewrite. And the lilies in their hallway? I knew now why they smelled so strong. Flowers always reek the most right before they rot. The storm broke the following evening, rain smearing the motel window into silver streaks. I sat at the desk, every document spread out in precise rows. Mortgage receipts, utility bills, that signed clause like a blade. The key lay at the center, its metal catching the dull glow of the desk lamp. My phone buzzed. A voicemail this time from Dad. His voice cracked, raw with something he rarely showed. Lena, listen, this doesn't have to get ugly. Your sister. She's not equipped to handle all this. Maybe we rush things. Come by tomorrow. We'll talk. I replayed it twice. Each time, I heard the fracture behind his authority. He wasn't summoning me, he was pleading. The next morning, I drove back. The rain had cleared, but the driveway was littered with petals. The lilies had toppled, their stems bent, their water vase cracked. A fitting omen. Inside, silence. No wine glasses clinking, no smug laughter. Just Dad at the table, papers scattered like debris after a storm. My sister sat slumped in the corner, pale, clutching the copy of Clause 7.4. You set us up, she hissed when I entered. Her voice wasn't sharp anymore. It was thin, frayed. Dad lifted his eyes, heavy and dark. What do you want, Lena? I sat down across from him, the key between us. Acknowledgement, accountability, and my share in writing. He closed his eyes briefly, exhaling. Then, slowly, he reached for his pen. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was charged, final. For years, I had been the quiet one, the accommodating one. But now my silence forced movement. When Dad's pen touched paper, I knew. Their victory had been a mirage. Mine was the ink that stayed. Still, something deeper than revenge stirred in me. It wasn't finished yet. The reckoning was only beginning. The papers were signed. Dad's signature dragged across the contract like a reluctant confession. My sister's hands trembled as she pushed her chair back, her earlier bravado dissolving into silence. For once, the house felt still, not triumphant, not hostile, just still, as if the walls themselves were waiting for my decision. I looked down at the key in my hand. For years it had been access, then exile, then weapon. Now it felt different, a choice. I set it on the table between us, the brass glinting under the chandelier. "I don't need this house," I said softly. My sister's eyes widened, searching for a trap. Dad leaned forward, confused. "But you will acknowledge what I've given, what I've built here and what you tried to erase. In writing." Dad swallowed, nodding once. He understood the difference between losing property and losing face, and he knew which one cut deeper. I pulled my journals from the tote bag, sliding them across the table. "These stay with me. Every bill, every payment, every forgotten promise. I won't bury the truth anymore." My sister whispered, "So you're walking away?" "No," I replied, standing. "I'm moving forward. There's a difference." I gathered the documents into my bag, leaving only the key behind. It was theirs now, not mine. Let them live with the lilies that smelled like rot, the shadows of signatures, the fragile walls that had always held more resentment than love. As I stepped outside, the air was crisp, almost new. For the first time in days, my chest felt light. Revenge hadn't been about keeping the house. It was about reclaiming myself, piece by piece, proof by proof. At the curb, I paused. If this ever happened to you, if family ever tried to erase you, just say same in the comments. You're not alone. I walked on, the morning sun breaking through gray clouds, warm against my face. Behind me, the house stood quiet, burdened with its own ghosts. Ahead of me stretched something far more valuable than property, clarity.